All right. Well, Sandra, it looks like it's just the two of us.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know where all the people are. And I'm sorry, I am a mess. I thought to myself, I'm going to go out for a quick run before I do this lecture.
That is the reason my video is not on.
Well, I got caught in a torrential downpour.
Oh,
I was soaking wet, and I was standing out in the garage dripping wet. I texted my son, "Can you bring me a towel?" He was busy gaming.
oh,
So,
of course. He didn't see it.
no.
No.
Sorry, Mom, didn't see that. And I was like, "Okay,
Yeah.
well, great, thanks."
It's like
Nothing.
97 degrees here already. So
Oh, where are you?
in Dallas.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. Supposed to be 102 tomorrow. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I'm like, it's crazy.
Wow. I have a friend that's in Dallas right now. Um, yeah, it was warm. It was hot and sunny when I went out for my run. And then while I was I go out and back, and so I'm out, and the rain
Yeah.
came, and it just was a torrential downpour. I was like, okay, well, this is what it
Not good luck today.
is. Anyway, okay, well, let's get going. I am recording this, so for the other people that didn't get on, or maybe they're getting on late or whatever, it will be in the archive. And I really do hope people watch it because everybody gets this wrong unless they've watched the live
Right.
chat. So we're going to talk about SMART goals, and it is a little bit tricky because the way that they have it in the textbooks, I even had a healthcare CEO who had been in healthcare forever, and he didn't understand how to do it. It's really tricky, but I'm going to show you and it'll make sense when I show you.
Okay.
Um, so again, I just want to start with the marketing umbrella, really looking at and understanding that marketing encompasses, our customers, the people, products, the price that we charge for them, distribution, our place. And then finally, we can do a promotion, which, oh, here comes everybody. Yay. Finally, we can do promotion, which is our advertising, public relations, personal selling, sales promotion, and direct marketing. And then using either old media, television, print, or radio, or our new media, which is digital and social and mobile. In fact, I just got my mobile app for my coffee bar back in action because mobile is incredibly important. Um, Good afternoon. Hey, David. Well, glad you were able to get on with this live chat. We're going ahead and going full tilt with it. So again, just, if you can't use Grammarly, I do suggest it. Use the editor in Word or something. Everybody's been doing a pretty good job with their proofreading and then making sure APA source citations. I will say, as I'm grading and I got through one section that I'm teaching and I'm working on. I think I got about a fourth of a way on another section that I'm teaching. So hoping tonight and tomorrow to finish up the rest of the IP for Unit 1. But everybody seems to be doing a good job with the proofreading. It's the APA. Remember, if you have end of paper references, you have to have that corresponding in-text source citation. So I'm still seeing a lot of papers that have great end of paper references, but there needs to be a corresponding in-text source citation where you use the information. The idea is that your reader will look and see the information and be able to go look up where that came from. And you can't do that if you haven't put an in-text source citation. So here are a couple of the resources that I use. These are links. So I will send the PowerPoint when we're done with the live chat, and you should be able to click on those links and get information on how to do that. Does anybody have any questions? I'm going to go right into our assignments and we'll talk about how to do those. We're going to spend a fair amount of time talking about setting SMART goals. It's a critically important element in business, not just marketing, but in business in general. So I want you guys to know how to do it correctly. Anyway, our discussion board for Unit 2, what you're going to do, you'll have some, of course, reading and some resources for this unit based on what you've learned from that. The first task, and we're going to talk a little bit about unique selling proposition or unique selling position in this live chat, but a marketer's first task is to understand what the product has to offer. It's your unique selling position, your USP. So how does that USP relate to the product when using the marketing mix? And remember, our marketing mix is that marketing umbrella in digital marketing. And then when considering place in the digital marketing mix, what are the biggest differences from traditional marketing practices when you're considering your marketing channels? So obviously, it's bricks and mortar versus online and getting it delivered to your home. That's the biggest difference. But what else comes into play with that and those aspects of the digital marketing mix? And then which of these differences is the most important to you and why? So that is your discussion board. Does anybody have any questions on that? And then remember 2 engagement posts with your classmates.
Do we have to use a source, cite a source in our discussion board? Because we've had a professor in the past, or I have.
That has asked for that.
Yeah.
You don't.
Okay.
These are and some of these discussion boards we need to update the directions that are listed in the course room, but I am not looking for any source citations. This is you discussing
Okay.
what you think. You know, if you want to use an outside source to validate and say, my thought is correct because here's where
Right.
I found this information, you can certainly do that, but you do not have to. It's not a paper with APA source citations. So it's mostly just based on your thoughts. And like if we were in a classroom and I was covering a topic and you wanted to discuss that topic, that's what the discussion board is
Okay.
for. Good
Perfect.
question. I appreciate you asking that. And I know professors are all over the place, and I've had to get after a couple of professors who take points off for it with papers because it's really just supposed to be a discussion. Okay. So your individual assignment, you're going to answer the following questions. And for this particular assignment, it is asking you to come up with like a business idea. So what I often recommend for students with this assignment is that if you have a business or you're looking to start a business, because I do have a fair amount of students who want to start their own business or they are in the midst of starting a business, and some even have their own business. If that's the case, use that business in this individual assignment. If you're on the struggle bus, so to speak, with a business, you can always use Refresh, the product that we did in Unit 1. So for this assignment, you're going to describe the name of your brand and the product or service that is going to launch the business. So you would put the name and then talk about the product or service that goes with the name of this business. The second step is you're going to provide a SMART goal. You only have to do one. There's not an S on the end of goals. You're going to provide a SMART goal that you will need to help you launch this product or company business. We're going to go over very carefully SMART goals because everybody does this wrong unless they've listened carefully to the live chat. I get so many papers and I really, really want you to do them right because it's so much easier for me to grade papers when you've done it correctly than put a big long explanation about what is wrong with it. And I want you to understand it. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to give you a lot of examples of a SMART goal. So all you need to do is include the name of your product and the name of it and the product or service that's going to launch this business. You're going to provide a SMART goal that's going to help you launch it and explain why that SMART goal is going to be good for your business, why you selected that SMART goal. You're going to talk about why it's relevant to your business and how you will attain that goal. What are some of the things that you'll do to attain that goal? And the last step of this paper is to explain why it's important to use the SMART acronym when setting goals. Okay, so here's where it gets tricky because everybody does, this paper drives me crazy because everybody does it wrong. But you guys are going to do it right. Those of you who are on the live chat, I have at least 5 of you that are going to do it correct. And then maybe some that might watch the archive. So the SMART acronym stands for specific. You need to set real numbers, real deadlines. You need to be very specific with your goal. It needs to have measurement in it. If you can't measure it, it's not going to happen. So it has to be measurable. You want it to be attainable. It's something that you've got to work for. It's got to be challenging, but it needs to be possible. And it needs to be realistic. Like your team is capable of reaching this goal. You or your team is capable of reaching this goal. And then time bound. You have to give yourself a deadline. If you don't have a deadline, it could go on for infinity. You'll never know if it's been reached. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. All of these elements of SMART are in your one goal. You're not separating these out. You're not saying specific. Here's something that's specific. You're not saying measurable. Here's something that's measurable. Here's my measurement. You're not saying attainable. Here's what's attainable. You're not then saying realistic and time bound. Do not separate them out. You're going to have one very simple goal, and I'm going to show you an example of what that will look like. This is a SMART goal. I do not have S, specific. I do not have M, measurable. I do not have A, attainable. Don't do that. Just put your SMART goal. It's got to have a measurement, and your measurement here, I'm going to increase sales 10%. I'm going to increase sales 10% by Q2. That's where the time bound comes in. There's a time frame for it. It's realistic because it's only 10%. It's attainable. It's 10% by Q2. You have plenty of time to reach that. If I'd have put, 300%, that may not be attainable or realistic, but you're going to increase sales 10% by Q2. I have not separated out the S, the M, the A, the R, the T. I do not have separate things for each of those elements of SMART. I have one goal. Now I would write that goal in the paper, and then I could talk about why it's SMART. I can talk about why it's a good goal for my brand or my product. Those are things that you will include in the paper, but I should clearly be able to see a very simple, very simply stated SMART goal that has all of those elements: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Everything should be present in your one goal. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so all of you that are on this live chat are going to do good. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple other samples just to be certain. So we have our simple one: increase sales 10% by Q2. Another example would be you could obtain 20% market share by the end of 2021. It's got a measurement. I'm going to obtain 20% of my market share. And then it's got the time frame in it. It's going to be by the end of 2021. It's only 20%, so it's realistic, it's attainable, It's got all the things. It's very specific. I'm going to obtain 20% market share. This third one, I'm going to build awareness among 50% of the target market by the end of Q2 2022. Specific, I'm building awareness by 50%. It's measurable. It's attainable. It's only 50% of the target market. It's realistic, and it's time bound. It's by Q2 of 2022. So it has all of the elements in it. So when you're setting these goals, think about your marketing mix variables. Think about the things you can do with marketing. So things like, you could increase supply chain. I could increase distribution. I could increase sales. I can build awareness. I can look at increasing my market share. I could, you know, there's just a myriad of things that we have available for us in marketing. Look to have a good marketing objective, but again, keep it simple. You're going to tell me why it's important to be smart when you set your goals. You're going to tell me why those things are all important, the specific, the measurable, all of that. But you do not need to break this out. Just have a very simple, clearly stated goal that has all of the SMART elements in it. Does everybody get that? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I can't wait to read your papers. It will be so good. All right, so we're going to talk about market research. We're going to talk a little bit too about our selling position, our unique selling position, because you're going to talk about unique selling position in your discussion board. And our unique selling position is simply what sets us apart, what makes us different in the marketplace. We talked about it a little bit in our live chat last week. I gave you the example of the sandwich. If I'm looking for a sandwich, I'm hungry and I want to eat, and I want to look at and think about all the different sandwich shops in the area that are available to me, I'll have that consideration set in my head, and I'll think about what makes each sandwich unique. And from there, I will determine which one I'm going to go get my sandwich from. Market research also plays into this, and you're going to need to know, we're going to talk about market research even into next week because it is such a foundational. Remember, it's the handle that holds up our whole marketing umbrella. It is the information we need to make good decisions at each and every step of marketing. All of the marketing mix variables require good marketing research. So we're going to take a look at what things we need to be researching. It's one of my favorite things about marketing, and it's why I went into marketing, because there is never a dull moment. You have many, many, many things that you have to pay attention to, and there is always something going on. So let's look at our marketing environment. That blue wheel that's closest to that inner circle marketing environment is what we call the micro environment of marketing. It is the things that are closest to the company. We can do a lot of things internally with our company to help with those things in the micro environment. We can control a lot of the factors in the marketing environment. For example, you'll see in that blue wheel, the marketing channels. Those are the ways that you distribute your products. So your marketing channel could be direct, right from the consumer to the customer, or it could be indirect, and you could choose wholesalers and retailers as part of your marketing distribution system, and they would be your channel partners, your marketing channels. You have a choice how you distribute your product. So all of these things in that blue wheel in the microenvironment are things that we can pretty much control. We can control our organizational objectives, but we have to have a lot of marketing research in order to set good marketing objectives. We have to be able to look at our competition. Do we have control over who our competitors are? We certainly don't, but we can do things internally with our company to mitigate some of the effects of the competitors in our market. I spent the day today at my coffee bar. Bought a coffee roaster. I have a lot of coffee companies that are coming into town. I think we talked about this last week. The thing that's going to set my coffee apart from others is the fact that I'm micro roasting right on the premises. So the coffee can't get much fresher than that. And my customers are accustomed to really good handcrafted coffee. So they'll be able to taste that difference in that fresh roasted coffee that's being roasted right there at the shop. So you can create your unique selling position that differentiates you from the competitors. So that helps you, and you have to be able to research those competitors in order to know what the distinct differences are that you bring to the table. So that microenvironment, it's all things that we can control as a company, but we have to have really good marketing research to understand how those things impact us and what sort of moves we want to make. What are the decisions that we want to make? How do we want to structure our company in order to deal with these things in the microenvironment? So you have a lot of those things, like the types of suppliers that you use. You have control over where your company is located. There's a lot of things and decisions that you can make that will impact your company, that are things that you can actually control. You can control the way you make those decisions. Now, the things on those and on the outside, those little purple circles, those are things in what we call the macro environment. We have absolutely no control over those things, but we have to understand those things. We have to do a lot of market research to see what implications are of things that are happening in those purple circles in that macro environment. And so we need to know what moves we can make to lessen the impact of things that might be threatening, or to take advantage of things that might be opportunities that could be very beneficial. So let's take a look just at all those things in the outer macro environment of business that we need to be constantly researching. One is the economic factors. We've seen a lot of information about the economic factors and how those affect things that we do. So, if you've got high interest rates, if you've got people buckling down on things, that may impact your business. You need to know how that is going to impact your business. We see the housing market up and down all the time. How does that impact businesses? I'll give you just an example. In my community, we have tons of houses being built. We have had a total influx of people moving to our area. And because so many people are moving to our area, the housing market is just crazy right now, but we have a lot of consumers coming into the area. That is good for our local economy. That's good for local small businesses. And I ultimately believe it will be really great for my coffee bar. So economic factors certainly are of key concern. What's going on with your state income, state, business taxes and all the different things that are going to affect your business. That falls into that bucket of economic factors. If we go counterclockwise, let's look at demographic factors. How do changing demographics affect your business? So if you've got a business model and you're going after, let's say you want the teenage market, that teenage market is going to change over the years. Teens will be different one from another. I'm hoping that the coffee craze that all the teenagers have is going to hold out for quite some time, but you never know. And you've constantly got to be researching what's going on with the demographics that you serve, or how those demographics change over time. Now, I will say also that because we've had this huge influx of consumers, of people moving to the state of Tennessee, that we've seen a major shift in the typical demographic of our community, of our area. It has changed drastically, tastes and preferences. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of different retail and restaurants come into our area that probably never would have come if it had just truly stayed the demographic that we had had, over the last 10 years, really stalwart Tennessee type demographics. But now we've got some changes. And so, in accordance with the changes of these consumers coming in and the demographic profile they represent, we're seeing a new mix of businesses coming into the area as well. Technology, that is something we are all seeing, and we are struggling with it at the university because it is happening so quickly, and students are using so many different technologies in our classrooms that we've got to really understand how it impacts us and what to do with it. For me as a small business, technology has really impacted what I do. I've now got, and I spent all day setting up this new electric roaster. It doesn't need a vent. It's totally gasless, doesn't need any kind of venting, and it's all electronic. Sits right on the countertop next to my coffee brewing machine. All of my roast profiles are programmed into it. All I have to do is touch one, and it will automatically roast that coffee the way I have set it up to roast. So technology has really helped. The change in technology has also brought me a new and better app for my coffee bar that will help me give rewards to my customers. It will help my customers make purchases online, and then they can pick up in the store, meaning they can pay from their phones as well. So they can add my app directly to their Apple Wallet and be able to pay from their phone. So technology comes quickly, and it offers challenges, but it also offers a lot of opportunity. But you do have to research the market and know and understand what's happening and how you can take advantage of it. Now that I have this fresh roasted coffee right on the scene, so to speak, I can also then offer that bagged roasted coffee for sale and delivery through a website. So, excuse me, customers can buy coffee from my website and have it shipped to their homes. So that's another technology factor that we have to consider. If we're continuing on, let's take a look at natural forces. And we had quite a lot of natural forces over the last few decades. So one of the natural forces that we all had to deal with was the COVID virus, and how our governments reacted to them, and then how we reacted to them. So when COVID hit, this kind of tells you how it all kind of comes together. For my coffee bar, when COVID hit and I'm at home watching the news and I realized they're going to shut down small businesses, I was up all night creating an online order form on my website where my customers could order and pay for their coffee on the website, and then drive up and we would deliver it out to their car. So that was natural forces combined with technological forces, and economic factors, if you will, as well as political factors in the shutting down of the small businesses that kind of all came into play. So that had transpired, and we've all dealt with different issues relating to COVID and lockdowns and all of those things. But when that happened, probably a week after we had the shutdown order for small business, we had a tornado rip through our community. So that was a natural force as well. it took out electricity for a lot of homes in the area. My coffee bar never lost electricity, didn't get hit or affected, but the neighborhood right across the street from it and the whole street was essentially decimated by a tornado that came through. So we had to open up the coffee bar. We served free coffee to our community as they were cleaning up and dealing with the devastation from this tornado. So now a lot of natural forces that came into play, and how did we deal with that? Because we've always been known, and our unique selling proposition is that of a real community coffee bar, place for people to come together. So we needed to provide that in that time of that natural disaster. So that is an example of that. Cultural forces, I'm fortunate that right now, culturally, coffee is very popular. That may not always be the case. Something else may come in and take its place, but you've got to look at cultural factors and how things are influencing consumers and how consumers are influencing different product purchases. Cultural factors change all the time. We see it mostly decade to decade, but when you're in it, you don't see it as realistically as you do looking back on it. But it's something that you continually have to research. One of the interesting things in our little community is, and it may be the case with some of you where you live, but I opened up and I really wanted to just do really good handcrafted coffee drinks. But because of Starbucks and that influence, consumers want to get teas and all different kinds of things at a coffee shop. So I always had tea, but then I had to come up with matcha and all kinds of other different drinks that I probably never would have thought about or considered. Luckily, I have um, great baristas in a younger demographic that let me know what's cool and what's popular culturally. And so I can provide things that I wouldn't have normally thought to provide. So matcha is a huge hit right now, and we have a lot of matcha sales in any given day. So you've got to be aware of those cultural shifts for your drink, for my drink menu, for my ordering of my supplies and my inventory, just a real understanding of what your consumers' wants and interests are. So understanding culture is a real critical factor in marketing and something you've got to continually research and keep your pulse on what's happening. And there are a lot of companies that are out there talking about trends and really forecasting and trying to understand the shifts, cultural shifts in the marketplace. And then you have your political factors. That was evidence in COVID, the political factors that shut down small businesses, but we've got a lot of political factors that affect a lot of things. And understanding that, researching that, and figuring out how that impacts your business and how you might deal with it is a critical element in your market research process. Within all of that, all of those areas that you have to research, you need to consider 4 types of market research. Primary research is research you're going to conduct yourself. It's a research study that's been done for the very first time. It's for you specifically and your situation. Now, with that primary research, because it is for your specific situation, it's going to probably take a lot of time to conduct the research, and it's going to be costly because it's not for anybody else, it's for you, and you're going to have to actually conduct it. You're going to have to get your sample size. You're going to have to understand how to tabulate the data and then what that data means to your particular situation. Secondary data, although I will say primary data has become much easier to obtain simply because we have so much technology available to use in conducting research. We have secondary research. And so when I'm looking at all of these things in this macro environment that I have to research, I'm thinking, how am I going to get information on cultural forces? How am I going to get information on what's going on politically or in the economy? Well, there are a lot of companies out there that do nothing but create research studies on different areas, and they sell those research studies in as secondary research. So secondary research is research that's already been conducted, typically for a different reason. But because it has already been conducted, you can typically buy it cheaply, well, more cheaply than doing some kind of primary research study. And you can get it pretty quickly. Like I could go online right now, find a great secondary research report, buy it, and have the data as in the time that it takes to download that particular study. Now, the thing with secondary data is that you have to find out, one, why was it initially conducted? And two, when was it conducted? Because you want it to be fairly recent so that the results, the information that you're getting, will still be relevant and applicable. So within those two types of research, you also have either qualitative or quantitative. So your qualitative research is going to be more sort of touchy-feely. It's going to get at the emotions of the consumer. It's going to give you information and data points about how consumers feel. It's a good type of research if you need to kind of uncover and seek to really understand a particular situation. Within qualitative, there are a couple of ways that we gather that data. One is focus groups. Another way is through one-on-one interviews. And yet a third way that we might look at would be observation. But it's going to give us emotional thoughts. It's not really considered statistically significant, but it is good information and can help with fact finding and really understanding a situation. We also then have quantitative, and quantitative is statistically significant. We are getting a broad, sweeping understanding of a certain issue. We can include a huge number of sample population, and we can get to that statistically significant finding of our information. So quantitative studies are going to be things like surveys. We've probably all taken a survey at one time or another. That is definitely a quantitative tool and considerably helpful in understanding a situation. I'll go into a little bit more depth with a couple of examples on when and how we might choose to use these different types of market research. So the very first step in any kind of market research is to identify the problem. So an example might be, I may not really understand or know who my target market is. If that's the case, I might do some social media, social listening. I can do that social listening through social media. I could identify blogs, websites, social posts. What is that information going to tell me? And then I can also do Google search. Google would be considered, secondary data. It's great information. It needs a little bit of fact finding on the part of the person doing the research, but see what you can find. Who is the competitor? All of these different things. So there's a lot of things that go into identifying the problem, and then how to go about using research tools that are available to us to understand that problem. My example here is, if the problem is who is my target market and I really don't know that, here are some of the things that I can do to try and discern that. So key to any research is your first thing to identify the problem. If you haven't clearly identified the problem, you might start obtaining research that's not really going to be relevant to anything that you do. So you want to really get a good understanding of the problem that you're working with. That leads us to our research design. So if you remember our qualitative and quantitative and all of primary, secondary, this research design is really going to be our plan for how we're going to get this market research done. And within that, there are three traditional types. We have exploratory research. Our exploratory research is going to give us background information, and it's going to really help us identify that problem recognition. Exploratory research is where I would use those focus groups or those one-on-one interviews. And in my years of doing market research, I have found that I can really uncover that problem, that research problem, or get a better understanding of how to conduct my research or what I need to do simply by using that exploratory research and that fact finding, that data gathering through one-on-one interviews and focus groups. The second type of research that we might do is descriptive research. This assumes that we actually have some information about the problem. This is going to help us do sort of that deep dive to really answer the question around who, what, where, when, and how. So it's going to give us a lot more detail when we dive deep on that descriptive research. And the third bucket is our causal research, and it's really experimental in nature. It's showing cause and effect. And a really great example of that is, let's say, and I have done this over the years, I'm at my coffee shop and I want to change up the types of pastries that I offer. And so if I'm in the midst of changing up the types of pastries that I offer, I may bring in some pastries and have samples for my customers to try. Based on the feedback that I get from those customers once they have tried these new special pastries, I may decide to order them and put them on the regular menu, or I may decide not to order them. I'm really looking at cause and effect. I've offered them up. What do the consumers think of those after they have tasted it? So that's the type of causal research that would help me make decisions around my products or my menu choices. So we have these three different types of research that really help us to guide how we plan to do the research and what that research design might look like. Now, what we are fortunate to have is technology, because all of those things in the macro environment and all of those things in the micro environment can pretty much be researched on a daily basis. We might not do a huge deep dive into them, but we can certainly get a better understanding of them and what's going on. So back in the olden golden day, we used to have to take a long time to conduct any kind of research. If we were doing focus groups, we had to find a focus group facility. We had to transcribe all of the feedback from that focus group. We had to incentivize our participants. It was a real laborious effort to conduct a focus. If we were going to do any kind of survey, we had to print the survey, we had to test the survey, we had to understand the data, and we had to code that data to be able to put it into our spreadsheet and analyze the data. Now we have a lot of technology that does all of those things for us, and it is so glorious. We can do focus groups online. We can do one-on-one interviews online. You can do it with something as simple as Zoom, which we're using right now. If I want to do a survey, I can get online right now. I have a survey provider that I use, a company that I use to do online market research and use to do surveys. I don't have to print them out. I don't have to code them anymore. I can even test them online. So I could go in right now, develop a great survey, have it tested, and get it sent out and get results as soon as tomorrow afternoon, because there are panels of testers and there are panels of survey takers. Everything is fairly easy that will go through and look at my questions, flag those that might have a problem, tell me what those problems might be. It'll even offer up suggestions on how to fix the problem. So any kind of market research has become incredibly more reasonably priced, easier to conduct, and quicker to get results because we do have technology. So some of the technology is like our customer relationship management systems. I even have them at the coffee bar. My point of sale is a customer relationship management. It keeps all my customer data in there. If I wanted to send a text message to a customer, I could do it through that. If I want to look at and see who my best customers are, I can easily pull that up through my point of sale, which is also that customer relationship management system. We can have software that does data mining that will go through and look for things for us. Again, a lot of those AI tools, if I was putting a survey together, I would make sure that the questions were all written for my target market, my audience, and that they're easily discernible. And data mining can help with a lot of that. We have secondary data resources. So there's a lot of different companies and technology that have gathered data and information. Even if we're looking at demographic data, we've got our US Census, which was taken, it gets taken every 10 years. It was really, really fresh back in 2000. It's 5 years, or not 2000, 2020. It's a little stale now because it's 4 years old, are 5 years old now. So you've got to take that into consideration when you look at it. Focus groups, I already mentioned, can be conducted in chat rooms. It could be as simple as a Zoom call like we're doing now. And interviews, same. They can be generated through telephone, and you can use the one-on-one communication of something like Zoom if it's important to see the facial expressions of the consumer that you're conducting that interview with. Then internet questionnaires, those are very, very popular and used all the time. Helps me to get my survey data done correctly, helps me easily put together a survey that would go out, and I can buy a panel of consumers and get a lot of data in quickly. And then computer aided data collection, which is what that would be, but it's also a number of other things. Every time you log into Amazon, it's recording that information. Amazon's recording what products you looked at, and they're keeping track of what products you looked at because they're going to serve you similar products in the future. And you're also going to see products show up on your social media feeds based on how you searched for them in Amazon. So computer aided data collection is certainly one of the more helpful things for market researchers. So lots of technology that's helping us get a wealth of data. So that's a lot of information. Does anybody have any questions before we end this and you guys start on your discussion boards for Unit 2 and your individual projects for Unit 2? Okay, I will, I'm going to email out the PowerPoint for this live chat. There are some live links at the beginning if you need to use those. And again, as always, if you have questions or you get tripped up, you need help with anything, please, please, please reach out via Messenger. I'll be able to get back to you really quickly that way. I check it quite often. And if you have issues with really understanding how to write that SMART goal, ask me before you put it in your paper. Let's take a look at it, make sure you've got it right. If you have any doubts, I do want to work with you on that because it really is an important business concept. So have a great week. I look forward to working with all of you, and I'm going to try and get the rest of all the papers for that second section of this course done by tomorrow, so you'll have the feedback on that. All right, have a great week, everybody, and have a great evening. Thank you so much for participating, and we'll see you next week.